This forum was endowed with generous gifts from the late Dale Sally in memory of his friend Karen Faith Witt, and from Norman Weinstein in memory of his father, A.H. Weinstein. With us today is Ellen Botnick, Ms. Witt's sister. Will you please stand so that we can show our appreciation? We are pleased to welcome to our forum today students who are here as part of our City Club student program. Participation of these students is made possible by a generous grant from the Jeffrey David Epstein Memorial Fund. Today we welcome students from John Adams High School, St. Edward's High School, Villa Angela, St. Joseph High School, and Gilmore Academy. Will the students please stand and be recognized? Oh, okay. And please let us recognize Norm Weinstein also, who is here today as part of our forum. Norm? Thank you. We are also pleased to welcome guests at tables hosted by the ACLU of Cleveland, or of Ohio, excuse me, the Legal Aid Society, and Baker Hostetler. Today is also the Battisti Memorial Lecture presented in partnership with the Case Western Reserve University Law School. Now we would like to return to our speaker and our traditional City Club question and answers. We welcome questions from everyone, including guests. Holding the microphones today are PR and Program Manager Carrie Miller and Education and Outreach Coordinator Deborah Agosti. Now, first question, please.
Good afternoon, sister.
Good afternoon.
My name is Joseph Meisner. I'm an attorney with the Legal Aid Society, and I want to give you a little test. You mentioned the victims' families. Yesterday, we were out in front of our National City Bank across the street gathering signatures against the death penalty. And a man came up to us. He told us that 10 years ago, his daughter was murdered, and they've never found the killer. He also told us that every day of his life, it's a terrible burden for him to carry. And he then signed our petition, and he looked at us. And my question and test to you is, what should we have said in return to him?
Well, thank you for signing the petition for a start. Now, what do we say when people have endured such great pain? I have a friend he teaches sociology at the University of Colorado in Boulder, and they have started with these cold cases of unsolved murders. When you're putting all of your resources into getting a few people for murder with the death penalty, look how many unsolved murders remain on the books, because you don't have resources for everything. And that man had the grace and the wisdom to figure out that selecting people for the death penalty, even if he could have gotten that, is doing nothing for his pain. And cold cases are a huge problem. I mean, we have a large number of unsolved murders. What makes the public really safer? Picking a few people, it's less than 1% of all the murders where we go for the death penalty, or putting those resources into community policing and just even improving the rate at which we even solve crimes so that people know who is the perpetrator, at least, of who killed our loved one.
Sister, of the things which you said, one rings in my ears, that the United States is today the only advanced democracy that still uses the death penalty.
That was our introducer who said that.
Thank you.
But I'll claim it too.
Good. And I wonder if in your travels you have come to some sense of why other countries have moved away from it and we have not.
The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, seeing the abuses that happened with government after World War II and what happened with the Holocaust, Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Eleanor Roosevelt was crucial in that. Universal Declaration meaning in Articles 3 and 5, no one should be tortured and no one should be killed. 40 years ago, only a handful of nations seeing the death penalty as a part of torture and killing of defenseless people, embraced abolishing the death penalty. Now, out of the 190-plus nations of the world, a majority. The reason is human rights. A lot of people ask me, well, look, on this issue of the death penalty, people don't have your faith and belief in Jesus or whatever. What's the common ground people are going to stand on? The common ground is human rights. Articles 3 and 5 state, no one should be tortured, no one should be killed. Everyone has a right to life. And when Eleanor Roosevelt was in there, naturally, when they went to write it, they said, well, everyone has a right to life, except those who do crimes and get the death penalty. And she held out. She said, no, this is a universal declaration that we want to hold on to so that we can move toward the ideal of it. That's the reason. Rwanda did away with the death penalty a year ago. Look at all the murders in Rwanda. Imagine if you're going to now say, those who did the worst torture and killing, we are going to demand the death penalty of them. What would happen to Rwanda? And year after year, another country is added. And I do want to tell you that when New Jersey abolished the death penalty and when New Mexico abolished the death penalty, they lit the Roman amphitheater in Rome, the oldest symbol of state killing that we have in the world. And the movement toward human rights is palpable in the world. When you get to the United States, Japan also, which imitates the United States in a lot of ways, when we abolish it, Japan is going to abolish it too. Because they say, well, look, the United States does it. I think the only reason we are, in fact, are shutting down the death penalty in practice. You got to know that. Starting in 2001, death penalties, where more people now know about life without parole and give juries half a chance they're going to choose life. In practice, the death penalty is in diminishment. Even we haven't had an execution in Louisiana in 7 years. Louisiana, you're doing more executions. You have 5 people scheduled to be killed before February in this state of Ohio. I don't get it about Ohio. No, I just don't. I really don't. In the deep South states, with, you know, the states that practice slavery. Ohio, you had the Underground Railroad here. I don't know. It's about educating the people, though. Because who thinks about the death penalty? And they just say, well, you know, there's some terrible criminals. Yeah, we're so removed from it. And so that's why it's still in place. Educate, wake up the people. Thurgood Marshall said that. People say they support the death penalty, but it's an uneducated opinion. Educate the people, and they'll reject the death penalty.
Sister Helen, you make a very compelling argument for abolishing the death penalty. The people on the other side, though, who say we should continue the death penalty, say that it's a deterrent to people who otherwise would commit murder, the fact that they themselves will someday be put to death. How do you answer those people?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we got a track record now. Let's look at the track record, see the states that have executed the most. Has the crime rate, the murder rate gone down? Let's look at the states that don't execute. Has the murder rate risen? Is it, in fact, a deterrent? And the track record well bears out, in general, roughly they're double the number of homicides in the states that execute than in the states that don't. And you always have to look at the soil of poverty, crime, that leads to violence in societies. That's the root causes of violence. Death penalty's got nothing to do with it. And there was a opinion poll and interviews with police chiefs across the United States, and 10 remedies were given. And one of them was the death penalty, increasing the death penalty. The others were dealing with drug addiction, to help people deal with that, doing more community policing, working with at-risk kids to get jobs. And in the police chiefs, the last, dead last on the list was the death penalty. And the way they put it, and I've talked in wardens of prisons, the people doing the thinking and the people doing the murdering are 2 separate sets of people.